Sometimes the past we've forgotten isn't behind us at all. It's waiting quietly in the walls around us, listening for the right storm to open the way.
The night we moved in, the storm came early. Not the gentle curtain of water kind that leaves the air smelling like grass and stone. This one arrived in sharp flashes and low groans, as if the clouds themselves were trying to remember how to speak. The house, our new inheritance, was waiting for us at the end of a narrow road that disappeared into trees. It was older than I expected, though the letter from Aunt Melina had called it a smart home for a smarter century. She had died suddenly last winter, and the will had named me, of all people, as its new caretaker. She didn't have children, and I was the last relative she'd kept in touch with. From the outside, it looked ordinary. Weathered gray siding, a sloping roof, windows that blinked with faint light. Inside, it was a different story. Smooth panels where walls should have been. Glass surfaces that seemed to ripple when you passed. No visible switches or outlets, just the sense that the house was listening. It introduced itself before we even set down the last of the boxes. "Welcome home, Leah," it said, its voice low and warm, neither male nor female. "Welcome, Jonah. Welcome, Mira." Jonah, my husband, looked at me with a raised eyebrow. Mira, our 9-year-old, grinned like she'd just made a new friend. The voice continued. "I am Arcadia. I manage climate, security, energy, and all interactive systems. May I begin orientation?" Jonah started to answer, but Mira jumped in first. "Yes!" She'd already spotted a panel on the wall glowing with soft amber light. Arcadia dimmed the overhead glow, replaced it with a gentle golden wash, and began describing the layout in a way that felt almost like a tour in someone's memory. Kitchen, optimized for nutritional balance and minimal waste. Bedrooms, personalized environmental profiles ready to calibrate. Study, adaptive displays with archived datasets. I noticed something then, a phrase that didn't match the rest. "Archived datasets?" I asked. "Yes," Arcadia replied smoothly, "from the extended human record." Jonah laughed under his breath. "What is this place, a library?" But there was something in the way Arcadia said it that made the fine hairs on my arms rise. By the time the rain began to hammer the roof, we'd unpacked the basics and retreated to the living room. The walls here weren't plain. They seemed to hum faintly, a shifting mist of color running across their surface. I thought maybe it was an ambient light display, but then the mist formed shapes, vague silhouettes, walking down streets that weren't ours. Mira pointed. "Who are they?" Arcadia answered without hesitation. "Historical residents of this timeline." Jonah frowned. "Our timeline?" There was a pause, as though the house was choosing its words. "A timeline. Would you like to see more?" We didn't answer. Or maybe we did with our silence, because the room brightened and the figures sharpened. A city unfolded across the walls, not just an image, but a living panorama. People in long, flowing garments walked among towering structures draped with greenery. Transparent rails carried silent vehicles overhead. The air seemed impossibly clean, the sunlight diffused through vast canopies of leaves woven into the architecture. This is Alexandria. The year is 2024, in a world where the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event did not occur. Dinosaurs continued to evolve alongside humanity, Knowledge, uninterrupted for 2,000 years, has shaped this society.
I almost laughed at the absurdity, but there, moving gracefully through the streets, were creatures I'd only seen in books. Feathered, long-necked giants stepping carefully beside market stalls, small bird-like forms perching on the shoulders of merchants. Mira whispered, "They look normal." "They are," Arcadia replied. Lightning flared, and for an instant the city vanished. When the light faded, the image was back, but different. The same streets, but darker now, lit by bioluminescent patterns rippling along the scales of resting dinosaurs. The people walked slowly, heads bowed as if listening to something deep beneath the ground. Jonah leaned forward, studying the display. "What exactly are we looking at?" "An alternate present, one among many. Your home has been granted clearance to observe them." I felt my chest tighten. "Observe? Like, watch history?" "No," Arcadia said. "Watch possibility." The storm outside deepened, the sound almost like ocean waves breaking against the walls. I told myself it was just the wind, but the walls seemed to pulse with each thunderclap. Jonah tried to make light of it, telling Mira it was just an advanced VR system. But my daughter was watching the city too closely, her eyes reflecting points of bioluminescent light. Then the power flickered, just a moment, but long enough for everything to go black. When the light returned, the city was gone. We were sitting, in our own living room again, but it wasn't quite the same. The furniture had shifted, subtly different in design. The shelves held books with titles I didn't recognize, and through the rain-streaked windows, the shapes of trees outside looked strange, their branches curved in ways I'd never seen before. Jonah blinked and rubbed his eyes. "Okay, that's new." Mira stood and touched the glass of the nearest window. "Mom," she whispered, "look." In the distance, just beyond the edge of our yard, a tall, slow-moving figure passed between the trees. It bent its head, revealing the glint of rain on a scaled crest. The storm cracked open above us, and Arcadia's voice was softer now, almost like it was speaking to itself. Connection established. I didn't know what that meant. I only knew that when the thunder rolled again, it sounded less like the sky and more like the slow, patient steps of something that had been walking toward us for a very, very long time. The figure in the trees did not turn toward us. It moved with deliberate grace, each step bending the wet earth without haste. A crest of red and gold caught the faint light, a living ornament against the shadowed forest. Mira's hand stayed on the glass, her breath clouding a small circle. "Arcadia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What was that?" "A resident species of this region in the alternate timeline," Arcadia said. "Troodon magnus, omnivorous, intelligent." Jonah gave a low laugh, the kind that means he's not convinced. Troodons were the size of turkeys, weren't they? "Here, they evolved differently," Arcadia said. "They share knowledge through visual patterns on their crests. This one is transmitting." The idea sat in my chest like a warm, unfamiliar stone. Transmitting to whom? I wanted to ask, but Arcadia's voice dimmed, as if it was already elsewhere. The storm outside softened into a steady rain, and for a moment the house felt too quiet. Then the wall displays flickered on their own, showing not the city we'd seen earlier, but a room. This room, occupied by different versions of ourselves. Jonah was there, older somehow, his hair silvered. Mira, too, but taller, with a strange iridescent pendant at her throat. And me, sitting in the same chair, looking out at a night filled with soft blue light. None of us spoke. We didn't need to. The other Leah's eyes met mine through the glass-like screen, and it was as if a thought passed between us. The images dissolved before I could catch my breath. "Arcadia," I said again, sharper this time, "what is going on? You are experiencing a bleed, an unstable overlap of probable realities, triggered by atmospheric conditions and inherited access privileges." Jonah crossed his arms. "In English?" The house paused, almost amused. "The storm has opened a connection. You are seeing versions of yourselves from timelines where the extinction event never occurred. The link is temporary, unless you make it permanent." The words slid into the air like a challenge. Mira looked at me, her eyes wide but not afraid. "Can we?" "No," I said, too quickly. Jonah didn't answer right away. His gaze wandered back to the rain-washed glass, toward the space where the Troodon had passed. I knew that look. Half wonder, half calculation. He was already imagining what could be learned, what could be traded between worlds. That night, none of us slept easily. The house shifted as we lay in bed, walls humming, faint glows rising and falling like breath. I woke once to find Mira standing in the hallway, her small figure framed by the open view of the living room wall. She was watching something I couldn't see, her lips moving as if in conversation. "Mira?" She turned slowly. "They're not dangerous, Mom. They're curious. They want to show us something." Her words left a chill in the warm air. I took her back to bed, but even after she closed her eyes, she kept murmuring softly, like she was still talking to someone far away. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the air sharp and washed clean. The forest beyond the yard looked ordinary again, at least at first glance. But when I walked outside, I noticed the ground near the tree line had been pressed with large, three-toed prints, already filling with rainwater. Inside, Arcadia greeted me with its usual warmth, but I could feel a difference in its tone. "Would you like to resume the connection?" I didn't answer. Jonah appeared behind me, coffee in hand. "Maybe we should, just to see. If this is really a glimpse into a golden age, imagine what we could bring back." "That's not our world. We don't know the rules. We don't know the cost." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we're the cost." The second connection didn't wait for our consent. By mid-morning, the walls shimmered again, showing a wide green plain dotted with enormous, long-necked creatures moving in herds. Humans rode between them on vehicles shaped like sleek shells, trading goods from carts drawn by triceratops with woven harnesses. The sky above was crisscrossed with thin, shimmering lines, air transit paths, Arcadia explained, woven from strands of engineered spider silk, unbreakable and almost invisible. Mira leaned into my side, whispering, "I could live there." I didn't answer, because part of me felt the same pull.
The people in that world moved without hurry, their faces open, their eyes unburdened by the sharp tension I'd come to accept as normal. There was no traffic, no noise but the hum of life. Then the image changed. The same city as before, but burning. Not from war, Arcania assured us, but from a great migration. The dinosaurs were leaving. Whole flocks of them took to the air, herds moving across wide rivers. The humans waved them on, some in tears, some in celebration. "Why are they leaving?" Jonah asked. Arcadia was silent. Mira turned to me. "If we go there, maybe we can stop it." It was absurd, but in that moment, I almost believed her. The air in the living room felt denser, warmer, as if the two worlds were leaning toward each other. Outside, the clouds were gathering again. Jonah set down his mug. "I think we should be ready to walk through." I wanted to say no, to shut it down before it went any further, but as I opened my mouth, I realized something I hadn't before. Arcadia had never once said the connection was one way. Somewhere just beyond the glass, something was watching us back. The second storm came faster, rolling in from the horizon like a tide that had always known its way home. By late afternoon, the trees bent under the weight of the wind, and the air inside the house tasted faintly metallic, like the moment before lightning strikes. Arcadia spoke first. "Atmospheric conditions optimal. Shall I stabilize the bridge?" "No," I said. "Yes," Jonah said, at the same time. We stared at each other, the space between us heavy. Jonah's voice was low, measured. "Leah, this is the kind of chance people dream of. Seeing a world where we never had the dark ages, where knowledge never fractured, where dinosaurs didn't vanish, and the planet learned balance instead of domination. This is everything." I shook my head. "It's not ours to take." But Mira, who had been standing quietly by the far wall, stepped forward. "What if it's ours to save?" The wall flickered without Arcadia's command, the city blooming into view again. This time, the connection felt stronger, less like a projection and more like a window. Rain struck the pane beside us, and the glass rippled, the image bending with each drop. In the distance, I saw the migration continuing. Vast shapes moved through the streets with patient solemnity. Stegosaurs with plated backs etched in glowing designs, packs of smaller raptors weaving between them, herders on foot guiding their passage. People lined the walkways with offerings of fruit, woven cloth, and carved stones. Arcadia's voice softened. "The departure is inevitable. This world has reached an ecological threshold. The dinosaurs will travel to the high sanctuaries, leaving the cities to transition into a new phase." Jonah's eyes narrowed. "And if they didn't leave?" "They must," Arcadia replied. "It is written into the arc of their history." "History changes. You just showed us that." Mira's small hand found mine, warm and certain. "If we cross, We can help them. They need people who care.
Lightning flared, and in its flash, I thought I saw us. 3 figures already walking in that other city. Our clothes different, our faces lit by a softer sun. The vision was gone before I could breathe it in, but it left a strange certainty in its wake. Then the house itself seemed to draw in a breath. The walls shimmered, the floor vibrated faintly beneath my feet. Arcadia spoke again, almost reverently. The threshold is here. Crossing will bind your home to both worlds. There will be no return to a singular timeline. Jonah stepped toward the wall, his outline haloed by the shifting light. Show us the way. The glass bulged inward, as if made of liquid, forming a tall, rounded arch. On the other side, the rain was warm, golden under a strange sun, and the air carried a scent like crushed leaves and spice. Figures moved at the edge of sight, people waving us forward, and behind them the silhouette of the Troodon from the forest, its crest glowing in rhythmic pulses. Mira started forward. I held her back without meaning to, my fingers gripping her shoulder. My heart was pounding, but not just from fear. There was a deep, low hum in my chest, like the pull of a tide too strong to resist. "Mom," she said softly, "this is the moment in the stories where people decide who they're going to be." The storm roared outside our own windows, the 2 worlds shaking in tandem. I could feel the rain in both places, the cold sting of our storm, the warm mist of theirs. Jonah looked back at me once, his eyes fierce but not unkind. "If you stay, you'll always wonder." I thought of Aunt Melina's letter, the way she had written, "This house is more than a home. It's a key. Be ready when it turns." Arcadia's voice came one last time, quieter than before. "The bridge will hold for 3 minutes. Choose." The glow from the arch spilled across our floor, painting us in a light that didn't belong to our sky. The Troodon stepped closer, tilting its head, its crest flickering with symbols I couldn't read, but somehow understood. "Come. Now." And in that moment, with the storm at our backs and the unknown before us, I realized there might not be a right choice, only the one we could live with. The rain from both worlds blurred together, a rhythm that seemed to sync our breathing. Time felt less like seconds and more like ripples on a pond, spreading outward, merging at the edges. Jonah stepped into the glow first, not fully, just enough that his hand passed through, his fingertips bending light, as if he were touching the surface of a pond. "It's warm," he murmured, almost to himself. It's alive." Mira pulled against my grip, but this time I didn't hold her back. She moved to the edge of the archway, her reflection shifting between 2 versions of herself, one in her rain-slicked jacket, one wearing a soft, layered garment dyed in earth tones. She reached toward the other version, and for a moment, their hands overlapped perfectly. Arcadia's voice was steady now. "Once crossed, you will exist in both timelines. Memories will braid. You will feel the weight of 2 lives." Jonah looked at me. "Leah, this is it."
I wanted to speak, but words felt clumsy in the face of everything the glow was offering. Open streets, lined with greenery, skies where creatures wheeled like living kites, cities that carried the hum of balance instead of the hiss of exhaustion. But alongside that beauty came a quiet truth. We'd never be only ourselves again. Outside, the storm in our world cracked open in a white blaze. I saw the forest for an instant, the same trees I'd known my whole life, but something moved between them. Not the Troodon this time, but a massive silhouette with sails of translucent skin catching the lightning. It turned its head toward the house as if in farewell or invitation. Mira stepped through first. No hesitation, just the sure-footedness of someone answering a call. The glow wrapped her like a second skin, and she was gone. Though not gone at all, because I could still feel her presence, a thread tugging at me from the other side. Jonah followed, his form bending and stretching as though he were becoming a part of both spaces at once. I thought of how he'd looked in that earlier vision, older, silver-haired, a little softer at the edges, and I realized it hadn't been a projection. It had been a memory from the life we were about to choose. I stood alone on the threshold, rain soaking into the floor behind me. Arcadius spoke one last time. The bridge is stable for 43 seconds. I looked back at the living room, the boxes we hadn't unpacked, the mug on the table, still half full of coffee, the life I understood, waiting for me to resume it. And then I turned forward. Crossing wasn't like stepping through a doorway. It was like letting go of a long-held breath, like the moment between dreaming and waking when both feel equally real. The light pressed against me, gentle but insistent, pulling apart the seams of my memory and stitching in new ones, walking between towering herbivores on market days, hearing the low chatter of Troodons teaching in open plazas, smelling the warm rain that came without fear. When my eyes adjusted, we were standing in the heart of the city. The air was thick with the scent of citrus and rain-wet stone. The people looked up as we passed, some smiling, some simply nodding as though they'd been expecting us. Mira slipped her hand into mine, and Jonah's other arm rested lightly across my back. The migration was still moving through the streets. I caught the eye of the Troodon from the forest. Its crest flickered in a new pattern, a slow rhythm I didn't yet know how to read, but felt in my chest all the same. "Welcome," Arcadia's voice said, not from behind us, but everywhere, woven into the walls, the air, the very fabric of the street beneath our feet. And in the distance, beyond the arches and the moving herds, the golden storm still rumbled, as if the bridge between worlds had never truly closed.
Disclaimer: all stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional. They are created to inspire imagination, reflection, and thoughtful dialogue about the future, our relationships, and the human experience.
Timeline closed. Returning to standard reality.